we're here. It's time for another in our ongoing Spider-Man commentary series. This will be the second to last. Uh, Spider-Man Far From Home is not out on digital yet, but with the rate that these are going up on the channel, I doubt that will make much of a difference to anyone listening. So here we are. We're talking about just the best one. It's the best Spider-Man movie. This is the best one. And if you want to watch along with us, then you can find it. It's super easy. It's on Netflix, or if you have a copy, you can just get it to timestamp 0 and
And
go in.
crazy enough, and embarrassingly enough, this is the Spider-Man film I've gone back to the least.
Oh, okay. So when we start, I'll just open with that. But
Okay.
yeah, for now, on 3, we will get into this movie, and it's going to be amazing. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
So okay. How many times exactly have you gone back to this? Because I already know your thoughts coming out of the theater, but I guess for anyone listening, your thoughts coming out of the theater as well.
Um, I it is of course the best Spider-Man movie we've gotten so far. I thought it was insane that this movie revolutionized animation and basically came up with a whole new animation style just for this film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a beautiful love letter to not just Spider-Man but comics in general. Um, this felt like this didn't feel like a comic book come to life. This felt like a living and breathing comic book, and that's a really specific and interesting distinction that I never really thought I'd see done in quite this way.
Yeah. I mean, we opened with approved by the Comics Code Authority. Like that was the first thing when seeing the movie. I was like, oh, they like people with passion are making this just from that one little thing. And already it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Like every frame of this movie is just the most gorgeous thing.
Um, I love that Chris Pine is this universe's Spider-Man. That's kind of inspired casting.
I didn't know it was Chris Pine until I saw the credits, and I feel really goofy for not picking up on his voice, but I did not realize it was him.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Wonder Woman 3, maybe 4 times. So, and I've seen him in. I know him pretty well from the Star Trek movies too, so I picked up on his voice immediately.
Hmm. But like this is great. This is a good because the thing is we're not actually gonna get any Spider-Man action after this opening montage for a little while, like 30, maybe more than 30 minutes. And it's just a really interesting way to throw the audience off of like in the first minute, 2 minutes of the movie,
Yeah,
we're
that's a
gonna
beautiful shot.
yes, every shot in this movie is a beautiful shot. But it's a really great way to throw the audience off, I think, of like in the first minute and a half of this movie, we're gonna give you Spider-Man fighting all of his villains, and like it's super colorful and just like action, action, action. The
I don't know
story,
which influence. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't know which benefited more from the other, the song to this movie or this movie to the song.
I am gonna say the song
It's
benefited.
this song is was everywhere when this movie came out and continues to be everywhere because of this movie.
Yeah, I feel like the song benefited from the movie just because I really like it in this scene, but it is just this scene, and I
That's
feel
true.
like a couple of songs could have worked in its place.
But it's
Like,
become synonymous with this movie.
yeah. That said, it's not my favorite song on the track. I think my favorite song on the track is actually the one that is the least uh, audible in the movie, but I'll point it out. It's coming up. I'll point it out. But yeah, this shot is great. Just this whole like one take thing of just Miles in his element in his neighborhood, and then we're gonna mirror that later with the one take of him in the school for the first time, and he's
This is
very much
interesting because what little I do remember from the comics that I've read, from Bendis' initial creation and take on this character is he doesn't really have any friends outside of Ned. Oh, not Ned. I keep calling him Ned because of the freaking MCU movies. Because of Gang.
Yeah. Yeah, the song that's playing right here, that you can barely hear it because it's on Jefferson's police speaker or on his radio. And it's Invincible, and it's really, really cool. Like, it's so smooth. But yeah, like having Miles be this really social, really well liked guy, it again, it helps create that sort of dissonance when he gets to the school and no one really wants anything to do with him, and like suddenly he's the weird kid, and it's like it helps you relate more to like, oh man, this guy was so he was so, and the thing is he's pushed into it. It's like the whole problem here is that like he's getting pushed into this position and this school by his dad, and it's just everything that goes wrong for Miles in school is kind of like indirectly feeding into the divide between the two of them, and that's really interesting.
And I believe in the comics, his dad also is not a big fan of Spider-Man or mutants or any kind of superpowered people in general.
Which is odd, or like not odd, but ironic, given the PS4 version where he's like Spidey's homeboy.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
clearly I think it's fun that the creators of all these different, well, of like the same property have unique and different takes on it.
Mm. Then like just this whole relationship between the two of them I find super, super relatable. Even going back to like his thing about like pointing out the foam party, where like he's trying to create this bonding moment with Miles over this thing that he finds funny, and Miles just is not responding to it at all. And like here again, like they've just had this really awkward kind of disagreement that's like the root of Miles's problem in this movie, where his dad is like trying to take over his life basically, and he's trying to make this like heartwarming moment with the I love you, but it's just incredibly awkward and it only causes problems for Miles.
Yeah, it's just humiliating him.
And it's like you can see where his dad is coming from, and like he does have Miles's best interest at heart and he wants a good relationship, but he just is not taking the right approach. And Gwen is
I know
somewhere
it's a choice.
Gwen is somewhere in that crowd.
Yes, she is.
I like this. All the great expectations, pressure, stressed, like all of the appropriate words being focused on in this montage. And again, this is a super economic movie. Like we just got a sense of how incredibly
And
stressful.
we see our Doc Ock in the background there.
Yep, and like her last name is cleverly obscured by Miles.
Oh, and we get the O briefly right there. I just noticed that.
Mm. Like this movie's just really good at like we make a big deal sometimes out of movies like subverting your expectations or doing kind of subversive things with setup and payoff. That's a really smart thing where it's like looking back on it, it's kind of obvious that this would be Doc Ock just because she's working on all of this really out there science stuff. She works at Alchemax, and that's not necessarily like a Doc Ock thing, but if you know what that is, you know it's
Oh,
gonna
that
be
is related. Yeah, that's related to Spider-Man 2099.
yeah. And it's like if her design it becomes more obvious when we find out who she is, but like the point of her hair is that it makes her look like an octopus, and yet right now you don't even think twice about like, oh, she's just the cool lady, the science lady whose videos they show you in class. And again, so much of this is specifically relatable to my experience. Like I didn't go to a a boarding school, but just like getting videos like that in your class of like the goofy, wacky scientist person, and like,
Bill Nye, the science guy.
yeah, or even man, I forgot what it is, but there was this really cool like animated series of like, was it Science Courtroom that I got shown in middle school? What was like a cool like animated series of just people using science in these really bizarre like court cases. And it's like yeah, this I was gonna say earlier, this movie's really economic. Like that was a couple minutes of screen time. We're not even a full 10 minutes into this movie yet, and yet I've already got a sense of who Miles is. I've got a sense of like what his school life is, what his relationship with his dad is, what all that is doing to him. And now we've got Uncle Aaron, who in this relationship, for as little screen time as it has, really endearing, really, really charming. And when it goes south, like there's some real pathos there. And
And
obviously,
they have a very different relationship in the book. That's something that stands out to me too. I
yeah,
distinctly remember um, Uncle Aaron not being at all in an endearing guy and just wants to manipulate Miles. And
yeah, that's one of the few things I remember is him being like really manipulative and like kind of a jerk. It's like, I understand why you'd do that, especially if the idea is like Miles is different from Peter. So Peter had a good uncle, Miles has a bad uncle. Here you can still do that, but he's not like a bad guy. Like it makes sense that their relationship would mean something.
yeah, and he's like this hitman, this assassin for Kingpin, but on his off hours he's still just a dude and he cares about what Miles thinks of him.
This is great. That's just that little joke. It works so well because of the way that the camera is positioned. Like the way that Miles' hands go up, like you don't think he's gonna be able to get up there, but you think he's at least gonna be able to reach like the middle bar. But no, he reaches the bar that's like almost out of frame. That's how low it is. And like again, it's a nice subtle sort of like foreshadowing of like his skill is going to improve to where stuff like that's gonna be like no sweat for him.
I don't have the thing that Cap has where I suddenly don't need live action because of this movie.
Yeah,
The movie's
no.
amazing, and I do appreciate the novelty of how inventive the animation itself is. Um, and this story and its wackiness, I don't even want to say you couldn't. I mean, this movie is certainly getting away with stuff that would definitely play a lot more silly than it does if you were to do it in live action. But I don't see this as suddenly invalidating the live action interpretations that we've had so
Yeah, no. I feel like that's that's surprisingly not an uncommon mindset to have where I've heard people say that like you can do literally anything you want with animation, literally anything. And that's true, but at the same time, it's like I wouldn't want to give up seeing live action and especially like comic book characters done in live action because that in and of itself is an achievement and a feat and it's it's a different thing. It gives you a different feeling to like be able to put real flesh and blood like actors faces to characters and see them perform certain things and stuff like that and like see these kind of things realized in a realistic environment.
far. I love how
There's
big of a moment this is played as,
and
and
then he
then it
just
just
smacks it.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
no.
funny.
But there's room as there should be for both.
Yeah,
Always, I think. I really like this music track. Visions Academy 123.
so
Hang
do
on,
I.
I gotta do one thing. Sorry, what was that?
I was just agreeing with you.
Ah, I think I hit puberty. I should have kept that to myself. And okay, right. So you heard about all the deleted scenes for this movie, right?
I did not. I haven't even seen any.
And part of it, I mean, I like this, but yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure part of the reasoning given for why Gank, like actual Gank, doesn't have more of a role in this movie is Ned in the MCU movies.
Yeah, we already did that character, and MCU did him just because they need to give Peter someone to talk to, and they don't want to do Harry again.
Yeah, and like, granted, not to suddenly pivot onto those movies, I don't think you could do an accurate version of Harry Osborn that would be able to serve that purpose.
Yeah, especially if you're not going to touch Norman Osborn yet.
Yeah, but like, generally a common trend in adaptations of Harry is that he doesn't really seem like the guy you would want or like who would even volunteer to be the guy in the chair. He's just not that guy. But yeah, in this movie, there's a lot of deleted scenes, like almost a whole, I want to say 10.
And how much of those do you think should have been put back in the film proper?
Okay, so there's specific deleted scenes that I think aren't really necessary, but I would have liked to have kept, and I'll point out where those come from when we get to them. They're mostly in the second half. The stuff with Gank, though, uh, I mainly read descriptions of because I don't think those got officially released. Like those are mostly not fully rendered, like storyboards and stuff, where it's like a whole extended sequence of Gank and Miles, like I don't know if it's before or right after he gets his powers, where they talk about Spider-Man and they watch like a bunch of videos of the Chris Pine Spider-Man. And
Hmm.
I think they do test out his powers and stuff. So like it's after he gets his powers.
This is so funny.
Yes. And like again, I like the subtle breaking of the fourth wall where like his internal monologue is here like given as just a part of his powers messing with him. Not that dumb. But yeah, like Gank was like a character in this movie for like a good stretch of it before they're just like, this is taking away from the story. We've got to take this out.
And that's unfortunate since the MCU more or less stole that character and renamed him.
Yeah. But that said, like you asked, how much would I have kept? I'm glad they got rid of the gang stuff. I'm sure it would have been entertaining to watch, but just going off of like what's happening in those scenes, they really don't belong in this movie, I don't think.
Um, I like that Gwen is here. I will say it is super contrived how we get her here, and it's kind
Yeah.
of dumb.
Yeah,
My
that's like
spider sense told me to go to Vision's Academy. That's not even how spider sense works.
and she gets sent back like way earlier in the past than well, I say than the rest of them. Really, all we know for sure is when Peter B shows up. The rest of
And
them, it's
presumably the rest of them are just hanging out in Aunt May's basement layer
yeah.
doing nothing.
We don't know if they got there like because for all we know, they could have shown up like 20 minutes, 10 minutes earlier than Gwen and Miles and Peter eventually show up there.
But it would be nice to know if the timing is completely arbitrary or if they did show up at the same time.
I feel like we're meant to feel like it's completely arbitrary and just like they were off doing whatever and who knows how long it's been since they showed up. I don't know. That's that contrivance really is I feel like the one like big bit of like laziness on the movie's part. It's just like and again, I don't care because I'm someone who prioritizes like the story over plot holes or whatever. And so like if we have to create a plot hole so that we can get Gwen in the movie when we need Gwen in the movie, then fine. But that is the biggest hole I think you can pick in this movie is like we decided the role that we wanted Gwen to play and we really couldn't think
I
of a
love that
great,
Bendis's name was on one of the contacts. That's really fun nod.
yeah.
And regardless of how, I mean, I don't even think it's Bendis's fault how unmemorable what little I read of the Ultimate Miles Morales stuff was. It's just that I scarfed it down. I kind of forced myself to read so much of it at once because I resisted reading it for so long just because it wasn't Peter, and I felt like this was we're giving people their black superhero thing, and we're doing it with Spider-Man.
I mean,
That's
I
how
can
I felt
understand that.
the inception of that character for a long time before I finally picked it up and read it. Because you know how I feel about that. Like, I, I don't see, I don't see Peter Parker as any less relatable or appealing of a character just because we don't share the same skin tone. And so
Yeah.
I definitely would have cried foul if he was suddenly cast as an African American in a film for no reason.
Yeah, but then again, that's the point of not having it be Peter Parker.
Yeah,
And like I don't know, I think you might be right in part of that, but and just apropos of nothing, I like that we're getting with the weird spider sense that this movie offers us, we're getting voice clips from later in the movie. But yeah, I think that's partially your own biases, but I do think based on the very little that I read combined with basically everything I heard from people about the comics, like at the time and still now, I think maybe it just wasn't the best. Like, I get the impression based on what I've read, what you've said, and what I've heard other people say about it, just that they really didn't have a clear, engaging vision with Miles, not for a while at least. So I get the feeling that, I don't know, maybe it is just not the best run.
yeah. Maybe Bendis just wasn't telling the best stories with Miles. And I remember there's key points in the original Ultimate Spider-Man run that I remember. I remember Gwen dying. I remember her clone being Carnage. I remember pretty much every major beat from his Ultimate Spider-Man run.
Hmm. And the complaint that I've heard from some people is that, like, they weren't sure how to differentiate Comics Miles enough from Peter without just making him kind of a boring character. And this movie does not have that problem.
Not at all.
This Miles does not feel like any version of Peter Parker, and yet he's still just like an insanely compelling protagonist. And I could he's a fully fleshed out, three-dimensional, fully realized guy. And like the PS4 version has that to a degree, being the supporting character and not the protagonist in that story. But outside of those two, I haven't really encountered a version of Miles that feels like it's escaped that problem. A lot of them, like in the cartoons and stuff, feel like
Just a
ah,
reskinned Peter, for
or
lack
like
of a
trying
better word,
so, or like trying so
or
hard
trying really hard not to be,
and then just coming off
and kind of
really, yeah, like the solution to not being
bland.
a, yeah, like for some of them the solution to not being a reskinned Peter is interesting, let's not do that.
I love this whole maneuver he does, and that Miles copies it. Although it really
I
is,
feel like he's just showing off.
yeah, he's showing off, and that's what Miles is doing too. Um,
It'll
and
be
it feels,
particularly egregious when Miles does it.
yeah, I was just about to say that exact thing.
Prowler looks so cool here.
And the score is amazing, so
Yeah,
inspired, so just striking and recognizable. Like
yeah.
you hear that score, and it's synonymous with Prowler. It's really cool.
You know how they did that
Yeah, it's
that audio
elephants.
effect. It's like slowed down, screwed up elephant noises. And like
Um, I,
on the one hand, that whole bit right there, that is key to Miles' arc in that like he's scared and like him being scared and not acting contributes to like the bad stuff that's about to go down. On the other hand, very reasonable response. Not sure what anyone would expect him to do in this situation.
Yeah, he's not trained yet. He doesn't know what he's doing.
And like, there's gonna be a little bit,
He'd be more of a hindrance than a help, I think, in this scene.
yeah, and there's gonna be a little line of dialogue from Peter in a bit where he's like, he gives him the key and he's like, swing up there. He's like, he doesn't have webs. He can't swing up there. But it's like,
I guess he expects him to take the web shooters off his dead body.
Well, I mean, he could have just given it to him. He lets him go. Like,
That's
I don't think
true. Yeah, he could have
expects
just
him to
taken his
come
web
back.
shooters off and handed them to Peter. That would have been really cool as to how he got them.
I also don't think he expects to die in that moment, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah, he doesn't expect to die.
What's your take on head trauma? Tried to warn you, buddy.
That's so hilarious.
How do we feel about giant monster Green Goblin?
I've always liked it. I think it originates with Ultimate. Bendis does that. He likes to make monsters out of a lot of Spider-Man's villains. I think it works well enough with Goblin, and I actually do like it better because as purist as a lot of people like to be about the 616 version, where he's a guy in a crazy Goblin costume, I just don't feel like that translates well when you try to take it out of comics.
I feel like it translated well
Like
enough.
it translates well enough in cartoons, but like doing that live action, like
I thought it translated well in the first Raimi movie, minus just me not liking.
I mean that's not even really, you know what I mean, like translated fully from the comics where it's like the purple like and like the latex mask and like that whole goofy Halloween looking outfit, like.
But like the aesthetic of like a human-sized green guy on a glider is like, that is the Green Goblin to me, and like I don't mind this like giant flying monster thing just because it's another universe, and like we're doing everything we can to, like, without telling people, show that this universe is different from ours and different from any like comics that they might have read or other adaptations that they might have seen, and so that's another neat shorthand way to do that. And like, there's something really striking about one of these eyepieces being broken. And
Yeah,
like,
we do that a lot with Spider-Man. I always like that.
yeah, and like, because it's broken, it's no longer expressive, whereas the other eye is still expressive, and I really like that.
I don't feel like he's expressing with that other eye. It's not moving.
No, it is. It's very subtle, but if you look at him while he's talking, like the eye that's still in one piece is moving. This whole score by Daniel Pemberton is so great. Like, this is one of the movie scores that I can just listen to beginning to end, and every track is so cool. Booming.
I really like how exaggerated Kingpin is.
Yeah. See, like, I don't think it occurs to Peter even now that he's gonna die. I think he still thinks he can talk his way out of this. And I do like that, though. I like that when Prowler like activates his glove, his response is just to like groan, like, "Ah, come on." And you're dead.
And I mean, like, I can't be completely unbiased. Obviously, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, but I hadn't even spent that much time with this Peter, and there's already tears welling up.
Yeah. And like, the second time that I saw this in theaters, I saw it like next to a 4-year-old who was like losing it at this moment. Like, they were really terrified, and it's like they they I think part of like what's really cool is that because the audience is like so in Miles's head, they slowly start to get less scared as Miles gets less scared, and that's like a young child, and I think that speaks to how great this movie is at getting you to empathize with Miles, where it's like in scenes where he's terrified, like a little kid is going to be losing their mind, but as he slowly gets more accustomed to stuff, then the kid gets more comfortable. And like this is a very, very, very
I like the like flashy well like not freeze frame but like slow down frame seconds of comic stuff. That's really cool.
yeah, that's great. But yeah, this is a very protagonist centric POV. Like outside of the opening montage with Spider-Man, I don't think we're away from Miles for like no, there's one other scene. There's one other scene in this movie where we're like away from Miles for a significant period of time, and that's the Kingpin flashback. But I
Yeah.
think outside of that, we are with Miles exclusively through the whole movie.
Not even exclusively, because we do get quite a bit of um, Peter B. Parker's backstory.
True.
And we flash through everyone else's fairly quickly, like Gwen and all the other Spider people. We get through their backstory really quick before we jump right back to Miles.
And also everyone else, also all of their backstories, Peter B's is the only one that Miles doesn't hear. Like the other backstories are like told to Miles and whoever he's with at the time. Baby, you know how I feel about Spider-Man. Come on.
And weirdly enough, there's no particular reason for this. And I'm kind of shocked at myself for this, given that Far From Home isn't even like on digital yet, and I'm pretty sure I've seen that movie more times than I've seen this.
Wow. So like, do you know for sure how many times you've seen it?
This movie, I believe I've only seen it 3 times.
Oh wow. I lost track at some point, but I'm pretty sure this is like 10th, 9th or 10th viewing for me. And like, man. The great thing is, I'm like, I wonder if anyone had what I had, where because of the way that they sort of like, the way that they sort of did the trailers and stuff, the way that they sort of had Chris Pine and Jake Johnson do a lot of the same lines so that you wouldn't like they kept Chris Pine and his Spider-Man a secret in all of the marketing. And
Yeah,
so I don't think anyone saw it coming that we would get a Spider-Man who would just straight up die. And this Spider-Man is not classic Spider-Man in the sense that like he's a rich, successful guy. Everyone in New York seems to universally love him. But like visually, in terms of his attitude, he's a very classic Peter Parker, and he's the guy who's kind of got it all figured out, and then he's just dead. I think this threw a lot of people off, especially like the most casual audience members who were not expecting to get like multiple Peter Parkers in this movie.
and I didn't necessarily expect that either. I assumed we were going to have one that would just train him. But it is cool that we kind of got to have our cake and eat it too on that, and I'm still completely invested in it. It doesn't feel gimmicky.
Yeah. Like because they waited so long to take off his mask, and because I couldn't even tell it was Chris Pine initially, I am not gonna lie, seeing this movie for the first time, I thought Chris Pine's voice was like Jake Johnson doing a voice. Like something about, and again, because he had so many of the same lines from the trailers, I was like, is that the same voice from the trailers, or is he like putting on an affect? And then they take off the mask and it's the blonde hair, and I'm like, oh no, it's just a different Peter.
And Jake Johnson was also inspired casting for the voice of Peter. I
Yep.
really like the people we've been getting to voice Peter when it's not live action. Like Yuri Lowenthal did an amazing job. Josh
Josh
Keaton
Keaton is
obviously still my favorite.
Josh Keaton is still the voice that I hear when I read Peter Parker.
I was just about to say the same thing. I still have that every time I go back to Ultimate.
And like I feel bad because everyone is dogpiling on this show, but the one exception I think has been the currently airing Disney animated series. And like I almost feel bad for that show because no one has a kind word to say about it. Like it's animated really bad. The voice is not a voice that I would have picked for Peter Parker. It's really not a great show, and it kind of sucks that it's the animated show right now. But yeah,
Even Ultimate Spider-Man, which I didn't like, and felt kind of blasphemous if they even used that same title because it's
at least
so.
that show had its appeal. Like it was not for me. And
Oh yeah, but I want to say before you go on your point that the one thing that was not the issue was Drake Bell. I thought he was a pretty solid leader.
yeah, Drake Bell was a great cast. But like, yeah, that show has its appeal, and the other one just doesn't so much. And this whole thing is great. Like, again, if you, because I know that some people do this, or like, they maybe see this movie without paying attention to the trailers. If you don't know what Into the Spider Verse even means, this scene like trips you out because you're like, oh, this is the movie that I'm watching. And like, it's
I
such,
love that Peter is actually a pretty major supporting character in this movie and kind of has his own arc. He's not just the mentor.
yeah,
That was not a given going in, and I really appreciated this.
yeah.
I really appreciated that we gave Peter his own thing in this movie because it would have been really easy to just relegate him to the mentor role.
And as has been discussed by some people earlier, where it's like because we talked over it, why, how is like Spider-Man's story in a comic in this universe if people didn't know until today that he was Peter Parker? If you look at those comics, his name actually isn't Peter Parker. It's like Billy something.
Well, yeah, and those comics that Miles was looking at,
Yeah,
but
they just made
the
up.
comic flashes that we do for all the Spider-Man characters, yeah, I think that's just a fun aesthetic thing.
Yeah,
Like
but like I
those aren't actually in-universe comics. It's just a fun kind of aesthetic transition thing since we're making something that looks like a living, breathing comic book.
yeah, but for the in-universe bits, I like that as a little like avoiding that question. Like obviously they just came up with a fake identity for Spider-Man because no one knows his identity. And like I just as a whole, I really like all of these backstory comic sequences. Like this one and Gwen's and the way that we like quickly go through all three with Penny and Noir and Spider Ham. It's like it's really fun. It's like it's such a neat way to like have all of these characters in one place without having to be like following all of them up until this moment. Where it's like this is a good little thing that puts us in Peter's head for a couple of minutes before we shift back to Miles being the focus. So that way we have some investment in Peter as a character. Or this Peter. Like
Kind
again,
of funny and weird that his the bottoms of his costume are like burned off from traveling because that doesn't happen to any other Spider character.
it's so we can put him in dad sweatpants.
That is true.
It makes the cosplay even easier.
And I've seen a lot of this cosplay at
Yeah.
recent conventions that I've been to.
This and
You're
Fat
right, because it
Thor.
is just super easy to put together.
This and Fat Thor, yeah. And like again, this movie manages its time super well. I feel like I know this version of Peter Parker, and we've spent precisely like 2 minutes with him.
Weirdly, this scene was a scene at the end of Venom.
I remember that, yeah. Where it's like at the end of Venom, it's like, meanwhile, in another universe, and I'm like, I get it. It's a good idea to advertise this movie at the end of that one, especially since that movie ended up making a lot of money, but kind of weird still also.
Yeah, it just is such a jarring tonal shift coming out of. Well, I mean, Venom is like really weird and goofy and just a dumb movie, but I don't know if it's really trying to be. That's such a quagmire of a film. I don't
Yeah,
know
and
if
it's
I
like
have the energy to do a commentary on it, but it's so
and
bizarre.
and like even as weird and goofy as it is, it's not weird and goofy in the way that this scene is.
Yeah, that's what's jarring about it.
He broke his nose. His nose is gonna stay broken through the rest of the movie. I love that.
That's really fun. Yeah.
A child dragging a homeless corpse. Doing a bang up job of it, Miles. Literally.
Um, I guess we'll talk. I don't know how much we'll talk about it since Miles doesn't actually get the outfit that this movie is sold on until the third act. But I love the design. I love that the symbol is different and it's like spray on.
Yeah. We'll talk about that costume when we get to it, but yeah, and it's good to have him be in like this really weird costume. Like obviously it's just like a fake like store-bought thing because he's not Spider-Man yet, and he won't be until he gets that proper costume on. And he's putting on a voice and it's great.
I think part of the reason, and this, I mean, we know we're going to get a sequel and a spin-off um, films from this and even series, but I think part of the reason that I haven't gone back to this as much as you would think I would, even fully acknowledging that this is, I think, the best Spider-Man movie we've gotten so far. It's not as much as I love how relevant Peter is to this movie. It's not his movie.
Yeah, and see, like I don't have any kind of issue with that.
I don't have an issue with it. I'm just saying I think that's the reason that I haven't gone back to this as much as you would think I would.
Hmm.
I don't think I would change really anything about this movie, as you said. I think it's really, really well done.
Hmm.
Um, this is kind of easy though. This kind of ticking clock thing that we can kind of
Uh, I don't know. It's the kind of thing I've seen done in enough like universe dimension travel-y stories where I don't even question it. Just like, of course, this would happen. And it's like, yeah, we do need some kind of ticking clock. Like, otherwise, like the only other ticking clock is like either the possibility that Kingpin's machine just like completely implodes in on itself, or like the spider people have to get back to their dimensions because they've got their own villains doing stuff, and who's watching out for that? And that's all off screen, so it's kind of difficult to be totally invested in that idea.
that's fair. Talking scenes are always interesting when you can form interesting imagery around the camera and just talking down the side of a building. That's something you can only do in a Spider-Man movie, really.
Yeah, they talk down one building and then they talk up the other one. And again, really great piece of the score. Like I've put this track in a couple videos.
And I did play this track a lot when making fan art for the movie.
Hmm. And again, I like that all of this, like all of the plot that we're gonna do right here with having to re-steal this stuff, it comes down to Miles being careless and Miles making a mistake. Like, one, he should have had that thing in a bit of a more secure place. Two, he should have tied his shoes. And three, maybe don't go straight to jumping off buildings, even though again he couldn't bring himself to jump off the taller building because he's not ready to make that leap yet. Don't this that him yelling into his arm always got huge laughs in the theater. They cut some of this from the trailers that was actually meant to be in here initially, where he like uses the food to explain alternate universes. I can see why they cut that. I don't think, given what we have, that anyone actually needed that explanation.
Uh, Fair enough. It's not even something I thought about watching the movie, but yeah, you're right. I just noticed that. Um, I typically don't like that. I typically don't care for. I mean, it's nice to explain this kind of really out there concept to a general audience who's not all going to be major comic fans. But I don't typically like selling your movie with footage that won't be in the movie.
True, but it's not like that footage was necessarily a big selling point. You know what I think that might even be? I think that's something the kind of thing you would make just for a trailer, where it's like the kind of exposition that we give in the movie is not gonna fit in a
I'm
trailer.
so with Peter on this.
Yeah, no.
It's disrespectful. Spider-Man doesn't wear a cape.
Like his costume is not designed to be conducive with a cape. I'm sorry.
And that's coming from someone who, well, at least as a kid anyway, enjoyed Spider-Man Unlimited.
Mm. And the meme was born there. And like again, this is where we're continuing to plant the seed of Olivia. Where like if you, I could see you having forgotten that she was even a thing on a first viewing, being like, "Oh right, her."
Seems really sunny for snow in this area.
Yeah, it's the Mountain Valley. What are you gonna do? Also, it's another dimension. That's new. I like that. Like, just he and the audience are discovering the extent of his powers just almost by accident. And again, it's great how ridiculously huge Kingpin is. He almost entirely fills up the frame.
Yeah, that's what you do in this kind of aesthetic with that character.
Yeah.
I do like the camaraderie and then the relationship these two end up forming over the course of the film as mentor and mentee.
Yeah, these two have a pretty quick chemistry. And like just having this little moment where Peter is able to appreciate the fact that someone is on his side for once. Especially since you get the impression that this is not necessarily a Peter who in his universe is like beloved by everybody the same way that this universe
No,
had.
he feels more like a classic Peter.
Yeah.
That
And
was
like
before.
yeah, if you're paying attention, like you look on her desk, that's very clearly like a prototype octopus arm with like the
Yeah,
clawed end. It's split into two parts. It's like if you're paying attention, they're really letting you know in advance who she is.
and I don't know if you'll agree with this. I know you love Olivia in this movie and everything. I think she's a little underused.
Ah,
For as much build up and well, not build up, but like nods that we do that we're eventually going to do that. She's not in this movie a ton.
She's
And
the second most prominent villain, so like
I
it's
don't know. I
King.
don't feel like we. Well, she's making the collider. I don't know. Like I don't know what my real complaint is. Like she's servicing the plot in a very major way. But
But I mean, like in terms of screen time and like characterization, it's Kingpin and then her and then everyone else.
yeah, that's true. I don't know. It always, at least with my first viewing, it felt like she's awesome. I wish she was in it. Maybe it's just that I wish she was in the movie more.
Yeah, but like for what we have of her, I think it's perfect for what this movie is. And like I like we do this with everyone, but I'm especially appreciating it with her where like we're using a lot of signifiers and a lot of show don't tell with exactly the kind of person she is. Like again, she's got this whole like Miss Frizzle like aesthetic to her and like the headband and like the clothes and the purple streaks in her hair and the yarn and the fact that her desk doesn't have a chair, it has like a bouncy ball. It's like this is like millennial hippy dippy Dr. Octopus, and like it makes her very different from other interpretations of the character without like expositing about that. That's just who she is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Adds more dimension to her than just the female Doc Ock.
Yeah, and like that also can like come through in her deliveries, and like she's got a very like gleeful mad scientist thing to her. Like when this fight starts and she starts like chatting with Peter and she like starts she's having fun with it, and that's not always a thing we do with Doc Ock.
No, we
Like
typically make him a literal mad scientist.
or like very stoic, like personality wise. Like he takes himself very seriously. And
Yeah.
like Liv is like, yeah, she's like, my friends actually call me Liv. And like later she's gonna be like, oh, you're chatty. Like she's a Doc Ock who's not afraid to have a little bit of fun. Hang on one second.
I love this running gag of like Peter, like everything's fine, everything's good. And, like that moment where I admit I'm losing the fight.
And this is a really cool fight also. And like we do a lot of cool things with the camera, like that thing that's gonna happen where Peter
We
like
slide under Doc Ock with Miles
yeah,
here in a second.
it's like, can you give me that back? It's proprietary. Like that's really
Yeah.
cool. And like we talked over it, but good news, we don't need the monitor.
I think the bagel thing's a really funny gag.
Yeah, and like he throws it and it makes a little bagel sound effect. This is maybe my favorite track from the movie. This my favorite bit of Pemberton's score is this whole chase scene music.
I think it might be mine too. Um, it's weird because like they definitely make a score version of the "What's Up, Dangerous" song at the very end when Miles, well, not the very end, but when Miles is
During that scene,
falling
yeah.
down the building.
And I love the way that the score plays into that bit, but if you twisted my arm and was like, pick a favorite part of the score just from Pemberton stuff, then yeah, it's this.
Yeah, if it was just that, yeah, it would be this for me as well.
And you saw that video that they did talking about like the animation that they're doing here and the fact that Miles is like at a different frames per second than Peter is.
Yeah, because he's not as skilled.
Yeah. And that's perfect because your brain does pick up on it, even if you can't verbalize it, and it makes that really clear. Where like his movements by comparison are kind of janky.
Yeah, he's a little more scatterbrained.
And yet it doesn't look like bad animation. Like it
No,
still looks great.
it's very purposeful. This was one of my favorite moments in the trailers, and ended up being one of my favorite moments in the movie. Just teaching him how to swing.
Yeah, and speaking of the trailers, and again, keeping things a secret in the marketing, we kept Olivia a huge secret in the marketing.
Yeah, we cut around her,
Yeah, like she's almost the movie's biggest twist. That's not like in any of the trailers.
and that's really fun. Like as much crap as people have given Sony for how they market their films, I think they did a beautiful job marketing this movie.
Yeah. Even though I will say the one big oof that they made was basically releasing the you can wear the mask scene like the day before the movie came out. Like
And
a
like
whole
the final voiceover that Miles gives,
Yep, the final voiceover, like devoid of context, but still that voiceover is like
I
a
wouldn't
cool.
even consider that a spoiler, really.
No, but it's a really weird choice. Like it's a character arc spoiler kind of.
I think that's more just trying to do the inclusivity thing where anyone can imagine themselves as Spider-Man.
I'm sure that was the reasoning for it, but like within the movie that's like affirming Miles's character arc of like I can do this stuff, you can do this stuff, you just got to have some
But that
self.
doesn't necessarily tell you anything.
No, but like I don't know. I would have felt real bad had I seen that before seeing the movie and then seen it in the movie and been like, "Wait a minute."
I get that we have to streamline things for the efficiency of the storytelling. Because as you said, this is a really economic film. But I think most people, like especially you're not a comic fan, there's no that lizard creature she was fighting was Peter.
Yeah. I mean, she
I mean,
said
he has scales on his body, but I think a lot of people could you blink and you miss it, or you're not paying
but she
close enough
says it.
attention. Huh?
She says I couldn't save my best friend Peter Parker.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that lizard was Peter Parker. That could just mean the lizard killed him or mortally wounded him.
I don't know. I feel like she's
Like,
standing over his body. It's very clearly the same face and hair. I don't think there's I don't know anyone who interpreted it that way. I don't think anyone was going to interpret it that way. And this is a great scene.
yeah, really cool use of editing and music.
Mm-hmm. Surprised it took this long to happen, though.
I love the watercolor look.
Yeah, it's great. Ugh, harsh.
And it looks like he's willing to run his company into the ground to get them back.
Although, do we really have any sense of like how much this is costing him? Because he seems to still
No,
be pretty well off.
yeah, that's not really what I mean so much as just his
He's
own,
obsessed.
like the, yeah, he's obsessed, but what I mean by that is like him bringing them back could potentially, you know, eradicate a large portion of the city, if not the world,
That's also
and like,
true.
and that obviously includes, everything he's built for himself.
Yeah.
Can't be a criminal organization if there's no criminals to, run. I love that he just slyly blames that on Peter.
Yeah. How do you feel about the fact that we don't really acknowledge Peter and the like any other Peters in Gwen's history? Like the fact that this Peter probably more than likely had a Gwen Stacy who died. Like that doesn't come up at all. I think for the purposes of this movie, it's fine, but if you're a comics fan, it's probably one of those things that niggles at the back of your head.
Well, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that even though it's a different universe, that Gwen and Miles end up a thing, and we conveniently kind of age down um, alternate Gwen Stacy so that that's not weird because Miles is a lot younger than what Peter was when he died.
Yeah.
It's a little awkward, um, especially because Gwen is apparently taking all this stuff in stride and isn't even phased by another Peter Parker. I
Yeah.
love this moment because Peter had to bury his Aunt May, and she just lost her Peter. It's a really emotional and cathartic thing for both of them to
Yeah.
be faced with each other in this way.
And like Peter and Gwen having a similar moment where it's like, my version of you died, and it's for both of them. That would maybe feel more at home were this more of an ensemble movie, but this is Miles's movie, so we really don't have the time to do that.
Um, which it's kind of insane how well this movie works, given that it's also doing that. And I get the feeling it wouldn't work as well if they were trying to placate to every other Spider character.
Yeah, if this was like this can't be an Avengers thing where like the team is functionally the protagonist. This kind of has to be a movie about one person's journey to work as well as it does. And like if they want to later on do a thing where it's like the whole team is
This is a close second to my favorite score, but go ahead.
yeah, this is pretty neat. If like for the sequel or another movie they want to do a thing where it's like
Spider-Man
okay,
PS4 in the background.
yes, I knew you would be I knew you'd be so happy with that.
I almost jumped out of my seat in theater.
He shows up a couple of times in the credits sequence too.
So much fun.
But yeah, if you want to do like the next movie or a spin-off or whatever and have it be not just Miles' story, then I'm all for it. But this one had to be
Yeah.
Miles the movie.
Give me a Peter B. Parker movie, please.
Symbolism. Do you get it? There's the Enforcers, a little Enforcers cameo.
Nicolas Cage is again another bit of inspired casting for Spider-Man. For
Yeah.
Noir Spider-Man.
He suits Spider-Man Noir. He suits Noir more than I ever thought he would have suited Superman.
Yeah, I don't think that would have turned out great.
No other reason.
This is another great funny gag where he's like, "Well, how'd you guys get here?" Well, it's a long story. Not
Yeah,
that.
also another great part of the score. I'm just gonna say that about every part of the score, but this track is also great. I like how like it just shuffles like seamlessly between their three sort of like musical identities.
I'm a pretty big anime fan, so Penny's Penny's just um, she's just awesome. It's just awesome to see that kind of style in this movie.
I have a friend of mine who's like really thrown off by her for some reason. Like I'm
I'm
not
assuming
sure
he's not an anime guy.
he is. That's the weird thing. Is that like he really likes it. I got him into anime actually because he's like younger than me, but like whenever she shows up, he's like, she's weird. Something's not right. The fact that you're gonna die.
this is a movie that I really wish I had more to say about. I feel like it would have helped me if I'd watched this before, or at least went back to more of the comics and had a better knowledge of them going into this commentary.
I don't know.
But I really like everything I'm seeing. All this is really good. I like the character dynamics.
I'm
I'm
loving.
enjoying Miles's arc. I'm enjoying Peter's arc.
I'm loving. I'm loving Spider Ham's face in the earlier bit where he's just squinting super hard.
And they all drill him. This is all really funny.
Well, the world is at stake. Like he's got to be ready for this kind of pressure. It makes them seem a little bit unreasonable, but they're really not.
And not given the circumstances. Aunt May, you're not contributing right now.
And not everybody likes that line coming so soon after, like, I just buried my nephew, so I don't have a problem with it, but I can see being a little bit thrown off by that kind of joke.
I'm more thrown off by things that we'll get to in Far From Home.
Oh boy, you and me both.
Oh, that's a cool effect.
He's looking right at us when we talk about him.
I don't think that might be one of the hardest laughs I got out of this entire movie. This has gone by in a clip.
Yeah.
And we're a little over halfway. But it's really moving. It's a very iconic movie.
Yeah. And around here is where one of the scenes was cut, and I can totally see why they cut it because it's right after Miles goes up and leaves the room and stuff. Peter actually goes after him, and they have a quick little talk. And Miles is like, it's something. Miles is like, it's a lot to take in, and Peter's like, which one, the robot or the pig? And they have like a talk about how Miles isn't ready and stuff. And then Miles goes off. I can see why you wouldn't want to have him talk to anyone before he decides to like go off and go try and find his uncle.
Yeah, if he had, I imagine this would not have played out the same way. Or it would have been weird if it did.
And if you haven't paid most attention, or if you just don't read the comics, then this is a massive twist. Like I know a lot of people who, when when Prowler shows up, still haven't put it together, and they're like, "Oh no, we found his place." It's like in Homecoming with the whole, "Oh no, Vulture killed the family," and not he is the dad. That's his house.
This score it works so well. Music's a very important part of building atmosphere and tension. Like the slowed down, like distorted elephant noises is it's really striking.
Yeah, and that modulated voice is so cool.
And plot twist.
Dramatic sting. Like that opening note is super dramatic, almost too much. And yet still this is a great, tense, emotionally charged chase. And like the effect of I love that kind of effect where the glowy bits of Prowler's outfit leave like a little bit of an outline whenever he moves. like a little bit of a trail behind him.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Like, he looks so awesome.
And my first exposure to Prowler is the Spider-Man Friend Foe video game,
Oh,
and he did not have a cape there, and he was a playable character. So
the cape is so cool. The
yeah.
cape like makes the outfit for me.
Interestingly, I thought that he was an anti-hero because of that game
Hmm.
until I believe the '90s show. He shows up somewhere there. He's just straight up villain, I think.
And he does kind of have the look of one. And I was expecting, like him to die here. That would have made him look pretty incompetent. But like for a split second, I was wondering like, oh no, did Miles accidentally kill his uncle? But no, what's gonna happen is gonna be even worse.
This song was my ringtone for a while.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. But the, Lord and Miller, masters of the mood whiplash. And I love that she's wearing Heelys. And like it took me a while to realize that's what they were. So my first couple of times viewing this movie, I'm like, how is she moving like that? How is she like just sort of like sliding on the ground? It's like she's wearing Heelys.
I remember those being really cool for like a year when I was in middle school. Much like the Wii, and then everyone stopped using it.
Well, the Wii was a big deal for a while, actually.
I don't know. It felt like where I was, it was so cool for like a year, and then everyone just dropped that system.
It had a good like 5 or so years shelf life, the Wii did. But yeah, another big mistake on Miles's part. Like so, and ooh,
This
that's
is the classic actions and consequences thing that we do a lot with Spider-Man.
yeah, and like so many.
Whether he's trying to do the right thing or not, there are always consequences for it.
And for Miles, it's less consequences for him trying to do the right thing, and always consequences whenever he runs away from something.
Yeah, his inaction or his inability to be brave is what causes a lot of these problems.
Yeah, almost all of them. Because again, it's a case by case thing where you can say how justified is it. Where like maybe he could have helped Peter, probably not, but he runs away, Peter dies. He runs away from jumping off the really tall building, he falls anyway and he breaks the thing. Like he runs away and like he runs to get help without even thinking, like without realizing he's being followed. And here we are. Home's being destroyed. His uncle's gonna die. Just ah. And this moment is great. Like the word box is coming back and him not having control over the invisibility and like the music is ramping up and ramping up. It's like you really feel the stress with him.
And this is a really fun action scene.
Yeah. I wish this does have a slight problem where I wish we could get a few more clear like shots and clear bits of the other characters fighting because
Yeah,
it's over.
it's not anything that I could really cut. Well, a lot of it is stuff that I wouldn't. It'd be hard for me to like use in a video, like cut a video to it.
Yeah, like we've got a couple of cool bits with Peter. We got that cool bit with Gwen versus Scorpion, but like a lot of the fight up to now has just been very cluttered. Everyone in an enclosed space kind of grappling with each other, and you can't exactly tell what's going on.
Yeah, and because of how frenetic and like crazy the animation is, and how many characters are fighting at once, that is one of the instances where it is kind of hard to tell what's
And again,
going on.
that's
And to a
that.
certain degree, it's supposed to feel like that.
I feel like
We are looking at things from Miles' viewpoint, and it's just so many things are going on at once, and he's
yeah,
overwhelmed.
I feel like even beyond to a certain degree, I think that's entirely the point where it's like consciously they made it a less like a harder to watch fight scene because the fight scene is not the point right now.
Yeah.
The point is
Miles
and
is in the midst of all of it, and he's
it's
having,
chaos.
yeah, he's having kind of an attack and can't handle all of it.
And this, ooh, this is just bad.
I thought it was inspired how he decided to kill Prowler here.
Yeah. And like, I know some people, again, in the theater, who were not sure that he was going to let Miles go. Like, that's a great, like, tense moment of like, I was convinced that he was going to spare Miles, but you've got some people thinking, like, is he going to do it? Is he just going to go through with the job? Is he going to, even when he's
Well,
putting the mask
I,
down, is that like, if he doesn't see Miles's face, it'll be easier for him to do it?
um, and maybe I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't thinking this in the moment, but I'm obviously not expecting to kill Miles in their first animated Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
With him being the main character and all, like we did kill Peter.
But again, that's a thing. That's a thing that I think a lot of people have in just about any movie, like superhero movie or not, like any movie that has like the threat of death in it, where it's like consciously you understand the protagonist is not going to die partway through the movie generally, but a good movie, like a really good story of any kind, will be able to get you to forget that for a second. And so, like, the best movies are the ones where, like, the danger feels real. And when something bad happens, you're like, oh my gosh, are they okay? And not like, they're the protagonist. Of course they're okay.
I dig the added powers for Miles. I think it is those few little twinkles and stuff that they add to make him different from Peter, and it will be interesting to see how that plays if we ever get a proper Spider-Man PS4 sequel. I imagine they'll want to make him a playable character. But interestingly, we've never actually gotten an official announcement that we're getting a sequel to that movie. I mean, it's that game.
Hmm. Still, it's one of those things you kind of treat like an inevitability.
I mean, that game came out over a year ago now, and we still
Over a
have
year ago by like 2 days right now.
yeah, but yeah, well, 4, but yeah, I mean, we still haven't gotten any word on the sequel.
Hmm.
This is a really strong sequel.
Yeah. Even though, again, in the theater, I know some people who let out a little laugh just because Uncle Ben and Uncle Benjamin come right on top of each other.
Yeah, um, he's kind of made peace with dying because he's not happy with his life, and then his left him. He's kind of given up on all that.
Yeah.
That's really sad. Like he's really
But
cool.
for one bit of comedy. I love all the little cartoon sound effects we do with Spider Ham. Like when all of them were getting like suffering the dimension sickness or whatever. If you listen when it's happening with him, he's got the little cartoon. Yeah, but no. Right now, Peter doesn't really think that he's got anything worth going back to, or that like he can. He's got a little bit of an actual death wish.
Miles wants so badly to do this, but he's not there yet.
Yeah, no. Show don't, dude.
It was really great to look around and see everyone so invested in this moment.
Yeah. And like the scene that comes next with his dad, I heard some people getting teary eyed in the theater.
Yeah, that's when you know you have something really special on your hands. Because I remember seeing this movie for the first time with some really cynical people from my ship who, um, weren't elitist film snobs, but definitely looked down on animation and saw it as a kiddie thing.
Ugh.
And even they were kind of just completely enraptured and tuned into this movie by that scene. I mean, obviously that I wasn't looking at them the entire time I was watching the movie, but I glanced over at them while that scene was going on, and they were into it.
Yeah.
And I love this one sided conversation with his dad.
Yeah. I'd love it if he's like, no, I can see your shadow moving around and it's just Gank. Yeah, the performance here is really, really good. And again, like in reality, more more parents and children need to have this kind of conversation. Where like a lot of parents who end up being really controlling and kind of unintentionally dismissive of their child's interest, that comes from a place of seeing potential for them somewhere else and assuming, often rightly, that they know better, but like knowing better doesn't give you carte blanche over your child's life and like what they do with themselves. And you can take it too far in one direction and it can really, really strain your relationship.
Um, but I think his dad certainly come around the other end in regards to that, and because of that, it gives Miles the extra push he needs in this moment.
Yeah. And it's like it's I'm appreciating this even more now than I ever have, where it's like Miles's problem is, like, for lack of a better word, cowardice, and like he's
Hmm.
afraid to take the leap, and it's like he gets the push here because he realizes that his dad was not stifling him. Everything his dad does is out of like a belief that he can do it, and so not now he's got that inspiration.
Gank just goes back to sleep.
Don't even
And
don't
this,
even
of course, the highlight of the movie.
Yeah.
There are no words that can express how much I adore this scene. I would have liked for like him getting the webs to be like um, his universe's Peter handing them off, but
There
um,
are there are precisely 3 scenes in a movie that I've seen in theaters that have made me feel like this. There's the Avengers Assemble in Endgame, and there's the final race in Speed Racer. Like these scenes feel like transcendent to me. Like it is just pure bliss in movie form. And like the fact that the glass comes off because his hands are still sticking because he's still scared, but he's gonna jump anyway. It's like that's great. It's perfect. This is so cool. Yes, and this song mixed with the score is perfect. Like the song by itself is great, but I can't listen to it because I need it with the score. And the callback to earlier where he's like the woo is great. I love woo. Everything about this is so great. I love it. And someone made a cool point about like how Miles runs a lot. He has the line earlier, I run better than I swing. And so like his style of traversal is different from Peter's. So like he swings, but he incorporates running a lot also. And when the final comet comes down, it's like, yes, perfect. I like all of I like all of the like kanji in SPDR's eyes.
Hmm.
It's that easy.
It's not. But
And
those are the
this was another deleted scene where they didn't fully animate it, but it's Spider Ham is in the little dinner tray. He's hiding
Mhm.
in there, and like there's a bit where they like get stuck with the rest of the kitchen staff, and like they've got to keep them from realizing that he's alive. I would have
Jeez.
assumed he was saying sorry for your dead husband, actually.
No, I, I pretty much got that he was saying sorry, as in, I guess he was practicing to say all that stuff to his Mary Jane.
Yeah, but I mean, like, when she's like, oh, you don't have to say sorry, it's just bread, I'd have been like, well, that wouldn't have been my first assumption that he was apologizing about the bread. I'd have assumed that he was apologizing about the fact that your husband died yesterday.
He wasn't even paying attention for that. I was just losing an acting at the time I sent her that message.
And here we're, no, I just go sleep. Yeah, I love how consistent they are with like whenever Spider Ham does anything, it's accompanied by a really over the top sound effect. This shot, this is so cool. Just all of them swinging through this stuff. I don't think there's a single shot in this movie that's not the best thing ever. You still there? Malik? Hey, don't fall asleep on me again.
I'm not. Just had to grab something to drink. Sorry.
Ah, don't worry about it. This is so pretty.
Yeah, just a gorgeous movie.
It's so hard not to just like just look at it and not say anything. Why is this always difficult? I love that. See, I love that this is all like that was all like one shot sort of. Some of my favorite shots involve Liv, just like how menacing she can be.
We're about to get one of my favorite shots when Miles shows back up, and it's like the splash paint thing.
Yeah. I love that little laugh she gives. Like, that was actually kind of funny.
This is kind of an interesting choice for him to play with one of her tentacles, punch her and kick her around, and then come in and do the pose and punch her. Boom. So cool.
Spider-Man? Nice. And when they start swinging here in a second, they're going to be like completely in sync, and it's great.
Yeah. Just like he taught them. Just like he taught
It's been 2 seconds. How'd you forget?
them. I think that's the point of the joke. Yeah, they really understand Peter. The movie's not about him, but they have a clear understanding of him. I love that.
Yeah. Every direction.
And I feel like that joke he said with Miles, there's plenty of truth to it. He's like, "I love you. I'm so proud of you. Do I want kids?"
Yeah. Like, he's genuinely thinking that, but also he would, like, make a joke out of it to, like, deflect and stuff.
I can imagine like a lot of the Doctor Strange sequel looking like this, but more sinister and scary.
I hope that's the vibe it has.
Yeah,
Like, even if it's not this style of surreal, I want it to be, like, this level of surreal.
just a whole bunch of weird, trippy imagery like they'll do in Legion or occasionally in Doom Patrol.
Yeah. And this is great.
Straight out of a Looney Tunes um, skit or like a cartoon.
It's even funnier looking at SPDR's face and just seeing that, like, blank stare of, like, what is happening?
That's hilarious. So I believe we had an issue with um, Penny acting all broken up with, about her robot being destroyed over. We're like, why does she care so much?
And then my
I
sister
think,
pointed out the most
yeah.
obvious freaking thing and made us both feel like idiots.
Hmm.
Is that it's the last thing she has left of her dad. Which I could see, like,
Which isn't super evident. Like, I could,
I
I
could see,
understand how we've missed that on
yeah,
our first few joints.
I could see forgetting that. Like, her father is such a quick. Well, no, actually, because she does mention him again in the when they're talking about the people that they've lost. So that's when you realize that he's dead. And earlier she said it's my father's robot. So I'm like, that line.
I love that gag, but I also wonder, like, what that fight scene would have looked like.
Yes, yeah, but again, like, you don't want to pad out the movie too much.
That is true.
I'd have liked to see where she ended up because I don't think we get any indication of what happened to her.
Yeah, this is the most egregious thing. He just dives past these two buildings and then right back where he started.
Yeah, he didn't
And
have.
so
There is no reason to do that.
it
That was
just looks cool.
that was just to show off. Like, come on,
Yeah, I taught him that. Yeah, no, you didn't.
but yeah, like, the gag is really made by Peter's, like, reaction of, like, putting his hand over his mouth and, like, grabbing Miles's shoulder.
Yeah.
This is great.
This is so cool.
And once again, great piece of the score. Just this whole score is uniformly brilliant. I don't know why I keep bringing it up.
Because it's that good. And there's not a ton, even with a lot of musical scores I like, there's not a ton of that for films where it's like I like every single track and would just listen to the entire score in one sitting.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but I will. And we get a quick flash of black and white when he goes back to his.
We never see that hammer again, so we don't see where that hammer ended up, so I'm assuming Miles did just put it in his pocket.
That's so funny. Is he allowed to say that legally?
Legally?
It really makes me hilarious fourth wall jokes like that make me wonder if there was actually any kind of negotiation they had to do to be able to say that Looney Tunes line.
I wouldn't be surprised, but currently I doubt it. Just because I feel like you would get in trouble if it was
If it was actually a Looney Tunes esque character and like he actually looked like a Looney. I mean, he gives off that vibe for sure, but he's not actually a Looney Tunes character.
And he doesn't do it with the stutter.
Yeah.
But like that bit with Gwen saying, "See you around, Spider-Man." It's like that's so heartwarming. It's like, yes, he's Spider-Man now.
We're about to get to my favorite moment in the movie, and we're actual tears stream down.
Mm-hmm.
He's copied his move. He's like, you know what? You need to go home. You need to do what you taught me. Take the leap of faith, and then he lets him go.
And like, weirdly enough, the Japanese trailers for this movie or like TV spots after it came out sold it on this scene.
I don't blame them for that because it definitely like that image is really iconic and it's been stuck in my head ever since I saw this movie of Peter just holding not Peter, Miles holding Peter by the base of his costume and letting him go.
Yeah. It's specifically Peter falling into the void.
Mm-hmm.
Callbacks are fun. And again, another plus side of Kingpin being so ridiculously oversized is that Miles is as small as he is, and it really feels like it hurts whenever they fight.
Yeah.
Although,
the contrast is there, and
how did you get on there? Honestly, how did you get on that train in like 2 seconds?
I don't buy someone that big is that fast.
And so yeah, we see a bunch of potential like alternate universe Vanessa and their kids, and I pointed this out to you. One of them, in one reality, like it goes by for like a split second. In one reality, his son is Matt Murdock. Like he's got the glasses, he's got the walking stick, he's wearing a little suit. It's like,
I'm surprised they were allowed to do that.
yeah, well, they didn't use the name, and it was there.
Oh yeah, that is true. That's always a big factor. I do really like this though. That like Miles is not really an experienced hero, and he's having to take on one of Spider-Man's toughest villains.
And like he's landing a few decent hits in, but Kingpin's just such a force of nature.
And I've always liked the I've always liked that he's just a super strong, enhanced guy. But like he doesn't have like any kind of super soldier serum. He's just inhumanly strong for no reason. He's always been just a normal guy, just insanely strong.
He eats his Wheaties. Ugh.
And he only, interestingly, I do buy this more here because well, Peter was already like arguably kind of mortally wounded his universe as Peter, and also he Kingpin only uses one hand to bash Miles down, and he used two when he killed Peter.
Oh yeah, I never even picked up on that. That's true. And yet again, in calling back to that moment, that's another instance of, for a split second, when you're really invested in the movie and you forget yourself for a second, you're like, oh no, he's dead. Oh no, he's fine.
How do you feel about the callback to the shoulder touch thing?
It does feel a little clunky, but it's the thing that he and the audience would associate with Aaron, and you want that callback. It does feel a little odd, like, not sure Kingpin would let him finish that, but alright.
Yeah.
He's like he just let out all his frustration. He's in a weird place. But I don't know, I kinda like it. I always like moments of like getting up in the villain's face with a joke and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's not as bad as the Guardians thing where Peter just stops and dances and you kind of don't buy at all that Ronan wouldn't just vaporize him.
Well, I don't have that problem with that scene because in that movie, like, I don't know, I feel like Ronan is an egotistical enough character that anyone just like dancing in the middle of his big, like, self-aggrandizing moment is gonna throw him off. It's like, I'm trying to make a big villainous speech. What are you doing? And then the anvil, the anvil is the last thing to hit it. It's great.
Is there anything in particular you would like to see from a sequel to this?
I don't know. The more I think about it, I would like to see a sequel be more of a multi-character focused thing. Like, again, I would totally accept it if it wasn't. But now that we've got the world/worlds set up, I'd like to see a thing where it's like a movie set more evenly across different dimensions, or where all of the characters from different dimensions feel like they're like more major roles. I'd also, this is maybe more appropriate for a spin-off, but I don't know, they couldn't do that because it's a Sony thing. I was gonna say other Marvel heroes, but they just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They really could go anywhere with this stuff. Like, and I'm not sure I trust myself to come up with anything cool enough for these guys to actually do. And this is great. Again, it's like there's still that element of awkwardness where it's like he's like, "Oh man, I'm bad at this," and yeah, he kind of is. But for once, they're finally like, it doesn't matter that it's awkward. What matters is that he's giving Miles the opportunity to be himself and like affirming that he cares about Miles being his own man and pursuing his own interests. And it's so heartwarming.
Yeah. And that's really funny when he goes to hug him and then does the whole like deep voice thing.
Yeah.
Is it wait what?
Oh man, I wasn't paying attention. I was trying to see if there was any indication of Liv being like put in a police vehicle or something, but I didn't see it.
Yeah.
And once again,
Definitely.
we're calling back to the one takes from earlier, where he's back in his element again.
This is all really cool.
Yeah, and like this was released like as a TV spot or like a clip right before the movie came out. and that.
A good bit of that was in the trailers too.
But I mean, like this whole thing with the narration,
Oh,
like the Uncle Aaron bit was taken out, but like pretty much did yeah, like the main this whole thing, yeah. It's weird choice. I don't know.
um,
To be fair, like I say, I want more stuff in other universes. I don't know if I could watch an extended bunch of scenes in Gwen's universe. That would hurt my eyes after a while.
well, we didn't speak at all about this, but there's been a fair amount of people that complain that this movie in general hurts their eyes.
I don't have that. If people have that, I can understand it. Different people's eyes work differently, obviously. I can totally understand being really put off by it, but like for me, it's Gwen's aesthetic. Like that's a bridge too far for me.
And very true to the aesthetic of her comics.
Hmm. Like seeing it in motion is gonna like throw you off. And like this, we have no context for what this is.
Well, if you know the comics, that's actually a portal thing that Gwen uses fairly often to bounce in and out of Miles' universe. And so
Assuming it's
we're
assuming
clearly
it's
setting up that we're gonna have them as a couple like they are in the comics.
yeah, which I'm down for because they have great chemistry. But yeah, I'd like that to be like a thing. Like, let's not do the thing that we do with some of these movies where we set up a thing at the end and then we just kind of pretend we didn't do that. Let's
Yeah, Incredible Hulk.
let's
Yeah,
make like one of these movies like, okay, we found a way to safely travel between dimensions. Oh, cool.
Days of Future Past.
Oh boy. But yes, I love this song. I love this ending sequence. This whole thing is just so cool. But yeah, that was Spider Verse, and just like I have no shortage of good things to say about it. It's one of the best movies, just the best movies. Like it really is. Like it perfectly balances being like a fun, like family friendly, cool superhero movie and like this really amazing just animated art piece. And like like the music is perfect. It's got such a sense of like culture to it. It really feels like a singular vision while also having so many visions within that vision. And like it captures perfectly the essence of Spider-Man while not even having to be a Peter Parker story, really. Like everything about it works. Everything. Nothing about it doesn't work. And here we
Yeah,
get yet more PS4 Spidey cameos.
that's always fun.
So yeah, this was your fourth viewing. Where you at with it?
About where I always was. I really like this movie a lot. I appreciate how much they gave Peter to do and like that he had his own arc. I love Miles. I think he's very well done here. The story is surprisingly very simple, very streamlined, and it just works really really well. And I'm completely engaged. It's a gorgeous movie to look at. It's a love letter to Spider-Man in general, and um, I definitely need to go back to this more.
Yeah. Do we want?
And I don't think you can. And yeah, they had a significantly different group of people working on it, but I don't think. Well, maybe we need to see more from them, but I don't think it's fair to call this a fluke. So I know a lot of Spidey fans that we that have the debate about Sony and should they be handling Spider-Man and Spider-Man should go back to the MCU and Sony and Spider-Man's hands is garbage and people will bring up Spider-Verse and they'll say, oh, that's just a fluke or it's not the same people. So yeah. No, it's like it's still Sony. Sony made this movie. They deserve credit where credit is due.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like stuff like this movie makes it good that Sony has control over the IP, because Disney, although they probably would give us a really cool animated Spider-Man movie, they could never give us this. And well, I don't know, like anything could happen, but they probably would never give us this.
This movie would have never existed if if Marvel still had the rights. They wouldn't have thought to do an animated film. I really
Yeah,
don't think they would have.
yeah, and so like I get that. Like I totally get the complaint. Well, not the complaint, but like the observation that like Sony Animation is not just Sony, and like in terms of the quality of where the movies go from here, if you're still anxious about Sony having control, I get it, but just like in terms of what is willing to be done with the character, granted, I don't think anyone would have been saying what we're saying prior to this movie coming out, but the fact that this movie happened makes me go, yeah, it's really good. It's for in the long term, it's for the better of Spider-Man as an IP that these guys hold on to it.
Yeah, I definitely gotta agree. And I'm interested to get to Far From Home and finally tackle that.
Yeah, I feel like I want to like you had with this movie. I want to watch that movie one time before we do the commentary, so I'm gonna try and do that. And yeah, that's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be real interesting to round off these commentaries with that movie.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed our
Yeah,
commentary and discussion.
I was gonna ask if you wanted to stick around for the post-credit scene, but I don't think we have to.
Yeah, it's just a fun little cute thing. It doesn't really set up anything, so I think we're good.
And another Stanley cameo, and that I forgot to mention that quote that we ended with. Perfect quote to end this movie with.
Oh yeah.
Perfect quote to pay tribute to him with. That's superheroes in a nutshell, man. That's why I care about these stories. But yes, thank you for listening to the commentary for the best of the best Spider-Man movies. And next time we'll be talking about a movie that, although I really enjoy it, is not that. So yeah, look forward to that.